Hello, it's me once again, doing another one of my amazing videos. As with my last one, this is my second attempt at recording it, as I did an entire 20 minutes on this film. Even my mother walked in and decided to join in at one point, giving her opinions on the Action Force movie. Basically, she thought it was rubbish, and wished she had never seen it or been forced to watch it when we were kids and we rented the tape. So yeah, that's pretty much covered everything you need to know, in her opinion. But I will go to slightly more, almost too much depth, as I talk about Action Force the movie, or, G.I. Joe the film, as we now have to call it. But let's face it, I'm just going to call it Action Force throughout this video, except when I don't. If you were a British kid, the version of that film that you saw, as well as having every mention of G.I. Joe badly redubbed by local actors to say Action Force instead, you also had a different opening. The G.I. Joe version of the film opens with a big battle outside Statue of Liberty and sort of a big, rather fun, pumping version of a G.I. Joe theme tune, which I'm not going to attempt to sing. But the Action Force, the movie opening, edits it down to make it shorter, dubs over the Action Force theme tune, which is basically the same as the G.I. Joe theme tune, but better, as we all know. And the Action Force voiceover. But oddly enough, even though the version of the Action Force theme tune is the one from the TV series, the voiceover isn't the Patrick Allen one from the show. It's some other guy, which is less impressive, because of course Patrick Allen, awesome. That's the best thing, frankly, about the entire history of Action Force and G.I. Joe, that the British version of the TV series had a voiceover from the guy off the nuclear war warning system. You're not going to ever top that. Other than that, apparently there was also a later video release of the film, but it's cut out the Statue of Liberty sequence entirely. If you wound up buying the very first DVD of a film that was released in this country, you got a weird hybrid. That for the first 40 minutes is G.I. Joe the film, and then suddenly the language track switches, and it becomes the Action Force movie. Which really makes the poor quality of the dubbing stand out. Not that I ever noticed that when I was a kid. Film itself, as is now very well documented, was intended to come out first. Hasbro had 3 cartoon films coming out, scheduled to come out in the summer of 1986. Transformers, My Little Pony and G.I. Joe. That was my cat. I hope that sound was picked up. She was voicing her opinion on the Action Force movie, and like my mother, the cat actually quite likes it. Yep, she's a fan. G.I. Joe was supposed to come out before those two. Got delayed for a few reasons. Famously, the death of Optimus Prime in Transformers the movie was done as a reaction to the scripted death of Duke in G.I. Joe. So they wanted to sort of do something similar. That came out first. Complete box office disaster. Kids hated the death of Optimus Prime. Apparently the My Little Pony film was a disaster as well. I don't think they killed any of the ponies in that one. So G.I. Joe became a straight-to-video film, and they badly re-edit the death of Duke to have him go to a coma instead. There's a certain irony in that it had to go straight to video. Well, 2 things are ironic about it in the Alanis Morissette sense. Firstly, I think G.I. Joe would have done better with cinema, because it had been around longer, it had a 20-year history by that point. All these films were aiming to sort of get older crowds in with just the target audience of TV shows of small kids. They wanted sort of 18, 19, 20, 25-year-olds to come see these films. Hence the swearing in the Transformers movie, and they were going to have some nudity in the G.I. Joe film before it went straight to video. Tsarina was going to get her tits out, or we were going to see her naked from behind. According to Buzz Dixon on the commentary, he wrote it, you'd see her naked from behind. Storyboard artists went slightly overboard. Excited to be able to draw a pair of naked female breasts because they would never get to see any of the flesh, no doubt. Because of wanting older people to come see it and not just kids, to really maximise the audience. That audience would know what G.I. Joe was. They would have had the toy when they were kids. They would have that fondness for it. They'd be more likely to go see a G.I. Joe film purely out of the nostalgia factor than they would have Transformers or My Little Pony. So that's it. Probably would have launched the attempt to conquer cinema more successfully than Transformers did. The other irony is, by having taken the Boomy Prize and going straight to video, it actually winds up setting the standard of what cartoons and toy lines that do films would do in the future. Very, very few will ever have ever attempted a cinematic release since then, but sort of only really big things like Pokemon have. All the rest, though, have done straight to video flicks. G.I. Joe did a couple in the 90s, Valor vs. Venom being one of them. Scooby-Doo has done hundreds upon hundreds of straight to video things. So it's sort of more successful as a straight to video product than it ever would have been as a cinematic film. Probably had just as much of a afterlife. It's probably seen by as many people as the Transformers film as well on video. It's especially in this country, of course, where Transformers was very, very brilliant for cinema. They certainly have been sort of level pegging there. Film itself, and despite being straight to video in the end, that happened too late in the day for any real cost cutting to be done. So it looks like a proper cinematic animated movie. The only sign of straight to video-ness is the music, which it was probably used here for the first time, but as a Transformers fan, I recognise the music as music from season 3 of a Transformers cartoon, and it is actually quite distracting if you're a Transformers fan. It's all stock cues. There's also slightly less celebrity voice actors than the Transformers movie. You've got Burgess Meredith, and every time I say Burgess Meredith, I want to say Burgess Merrifield, which would have been much more fun having Uncle Albus in this film. And Don Johnson. Oddly enough, I don't want to say Don Jolly every time I mention Don Johnson. And they're the only sort of celebrity casting. I would have thought Sergeant Slaughter was celebrity casting as well, but he was actually in the cartoon beforehand. He's just one of the regular casts, which I didn't know when I was a kid. In fact, as a kid, I didn't even know Sergeant Slaughter was a real person playing himself. I thought the character was meant to be like a piss take of Jesse Ventura or something like that. That's the extent of my wrestling knowledge there. But yeah, it doesn't really need a sort of Eric Idle or a man who talks fast. So you would have tell it was straight to video by watching it. The scripts, like Transformers the movie, is written by Ron Friedman, and like Transformers the movie, the script consultant takes the full credit for the film. It's Flint Dille on Transformers and Buzz Dixon on the Action Force film. As with Transformers as well, Ron Friedman refutes that claim most strongly and says he did write the movie. Certainly both films do feel as if they're written by the same person rather than two different people. So make of that what you will. Oddly enough, on the commentary, Buzz Dixon says that the only thing in this movie from the Ron Friedman version of the script is Nemesis Enforcer, which I would like to know in what context Nemesis Enforcer was in the Ron Friedman script if there's nothing else in there in the final film, because I don't know how you'd explain a flying man with wings without the Cobra La setting, but and Dixon himself says on the commentary that he was brought in to the films, and G.I. Joe in general, because he wrote a lot of episodes for it, but he was came on board specifically to make the military aspects of the series and the movie more realistic. God knows what the Ron Friedman script was like if it was less militarily realistic than this. Tellingly, Dixon, the only point of the film he goes, this is a realistic to the military bit, is when Falcon has his preliminary hearing before his court-martial. The rest of it, I would say, not much of a basis in reality. But that is also one of the differences between this and the Transformers film. Transformers fans love the Transformers film. We adore it. Yeah, I think most of us would accept that objectively it's not the greatest film ever made, but it's such a big, important part of our childhood, of a franchise. We love it, and it's informed and influenced so much of the Transformers fiction that has come since. For G.I. Joe the movie, the fans, at least in my experience, I don't know if the attitudes have changed over the last few years, but generally G.I. Joe fans do not like G.I. Joe the movie. Mainly because G.I. Joe fans regard G.I. Joe as being a serious military war drama about soldiers fighting terrorists. They tend to get quite upset about any science fiction elements being brought in. As anyone who's read the letters pages in the G.I. Joe comic, and just after they did the Generation 2 crossover, will know, where it's like, oh, you can't have Transformers in G.I. Joe, it's ruining the realism of all these ninjas running about and Dr. Mindbender being frozen in ice and brought back from the dead. Well, that's realistic. No, but giant robots are ruining it. Is pretty much what every letter in that last page says as that crossover is finishing. Frankly, I think G.I. Joe is not even slightly realistic, even right from the start. Certainly the cartoon isn't. I'm rewatching the cartoon at the moment. And, you know, there's episodes where an army of rhinos takes over London. That's not much sillier than Cobra or any of the other stuff in the film, so I don't hold with that criticism. But that means the fans really dislike the film. I don't think it's helped by the fact that with Transformers there was a third season of the cartoon right after the film that followed up on its ideas and characters. So if you missed the film at the cinema or you didn't like it, at least there was a chance that in the 30-odd episodes after that Rodimus and the others would grow on you, and the ideas would grow on you and become more of an accepted part of the franchise. With G.I. Joe, there was no cartoon immediately afterwards. So, yeah, if you didn't like Falcon, if you didn't like Cobra, there was never going to be anything else after that would swing you round to the idea. Cartoon picked up a couple of years later, maybe by a different studio. Oddly enough, the first episode does pick up on what happens to Cobra Commander in the film, but otherwise, it pretty much ignores the movie entirely. I think they bring Falcon back at one point to make him a drug addict or something like that, turn him into Smackhead Falcon. That probably says a lot about that. He was picked for that, says a lot about maybe what the people who made G.I. Joe thought of that character by that point. That means there's a generally negative attitude in G.I. Joe fandom towards the movie. Generally, I'd say the film's actually quite fun. I think it might even have been better than Transformers, if not for something I'll come to in a minute, but it's got a great sci-fi idea. The plot is the plot of Doctor Who and the Silurians. If David Wise was in this, I would have assumed that was Deliverus. But you know, these ancient lizard men who used to rule the planet have come back, and they've got a virus that's going to kill everybody, and Eunice, or G.I. Joe in this case, have to stop them. And that's a good central idea. There's some great action scenes, good animation. The BET is a good MacGuffin because it not only creates a problem, but it solves it at the end. Some nice dialogue here and there. I think it uses the older characters better than the Transformers movie. It uses the original Transformers characters. Yes, a lot of the Action Force team get strung up in trees for an hour to sort of remove them, but generally people like Flint and Hawk all have nicer moments. You'd have a disproportionate idea of how important a character Snowjob is from this film because of its Arctic setting. I think he gets more to do than he has in any other G.I. Joe Action Force fiction. I mean, it's only about 10 lines, but that's still a lot more than he's done in the 20 episodes of a cartoon I've watched so far. And yeah, it's just fun. Very similar to Transformers film, and surprisingly, it's not quite as episodic as the Transformers movie is. It works better as a movie. However bonkers the Cobra Alarm idea is, it's not as much total insanity as there is in Transformers, whereas it's literally throwing lots and lots of ideas on the screen to see what sticks. This just has the one bad idea in Cobra Alarm and runs with it. But probably makes the Transformers film more entertaining in that regard, because you never know what is going to come next. And what happens to Cobra Commander is terrifying. That absolutely scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Was once a man. It's horrifying. That's probably the best bit of the whole film. What doesn't work is how it deals with its new characters. There is the Transformers movie basically ignores some of its new characters. Cyclonus and Scourge don't get much to do. G.I. Joe tries hard to give everybody a moment, and it does this with, by repeating itself basically. First, Falcon is being trained by Beachhead with all the other new Forces, or Joes, if whatever you want to call them. And that's okay, because everybody loves Beachhead. But then you go to Sergeant Slaughter, and then you get another training sequence with the other lot of new Joes, and it's just very repetitive and very tiresome. Even the personalities are that different from one another. I mean, there's two American sports players. You've got the basketball player and you've got the American football player, kicked out for unnecessary violence. In America, what a girls' game American football is. We probably just tripped over a daffodil or something like that. But yeah, slagging off American football. What are you going to do, American football fans? Bring it on! So that's very repetitive, and that sort of 20 minutes drags the whole film down and kills its momentum, and gets quite boring. Thankfully, after that, things do swing round again. You get a decent climax to the film, and the Duke's Serpenta fight, however, it is only remembered for the "he's gone into a coma" line. That's actually very well done, and certainly the equal of the Optimus Megatron fight in the Transformers film. It also happens later in the film, so if you were somebody new to G.I. Joe, you've had more of a chance to get invested in Duke as a character rather than poor being killed off in 10 minutes. So, ironically, again, that would have worked better as a cinematic release, because it's more bothered about people who come to the film for the first time, come to the franchise for the first time, rather. Although it is obvious, would have been better if it had been Duke fighting Cobra Commander, though, of course, because that's more what the rivalry is. And also the Falcon Globulus fight is very nice done as well. That great bit of Globulus getting stabbed in the eye. So the climax works out pretty well. It would have been nice if the film had established Falcon could use the BET beforehand. Because that comes out of nowhere a bit. Like he can not only work it, but make it do something slightly unusual. But otherwise, the film ends pretty well. Even with Duke's going to be A-OK line. Generally, it's basically the sister film to Transformers. There are two peaks. If you enjoy Transformers, you will probably enjoy the G.I. Joe film. Not having the nostalgia factor, especially if you're British, because Action Force never really took off over here anyway, might make you less forgiving of its faults than we all are with Transformers. But overall, pretty fun film. Got released in the UK on video some point in 1988, so when I'm doing it now for my website, in late 87, it's sort of halfway between its American release and its eventual release in the UK as Action Force the movie. It's possible it was redubbed at the same time as the rest of the cartoon was, though, because that came over here in mid-87, so they might have had the same people just redub G.I. Joe with Action Force for whatever episodes they brought over to release on video, and the film at the same time, even though the film came out a little bit later. Overall, I think the only problem with this film, real problem with this film, is that there isn't more Shipwreck in it. Having watched so much of the cartoon at this point, Shipwreck is the best character by far. I am going to get me a Shipwreck toy and a parrot. Because he's ace. And hopefully the live action G.I. Joe 3 will have Shipwreck in it, played by Jack Nicholson. Certainly film well worth your time to watch with a beer. Much like Transformers, get drunk, watch it, have a laugh. That ends Action Force month for my website. Thankfully, I'm going back to just doing once a week now, with the end of the Transformers Action Force crossover. And next Friday, I will be doing the first part of Worlds Apart and the introduction of Headmasters, a big, epic change for the comic. So I hope you'll join me for that on the Solar Pool Transformation. Google it. The weekly look at the British Transformers comic, and occasional looks at Action Force as well. The next video will be a Peter Davison Doctor Who one. And at some point, I will have to complete the trinity of sort of the action, adventure 80s cartoon toy line film.